Perceive, process, perform. Do you need inspiration for your practice? Or do you simply need to practice inspiration? With this series, we aim to do both. Give us 15 minutes and we'll give you practice inspiration. Tim Twigg brings over 30 years of practice management and business consulting experience, specifically in the healthcare field. In this short presentation, he shares how employment compliance rules don't always follow common sense or logic. He reviews important things you need to consider as an employer. Most of us don't pick up this type of information in dental school.
Hello, my name's Tim Twigg. I'm one of the proud members of the Seattle Study Club Speakers Bureau and have been a member of that bureau for over 10 years. Our focus today is one of the popular presentations that I do, and it's entitled Employment Compliance for Dentists. Now, of course, anytime that topic or subject comes up, the question is, well, what is employment compliance? And let me first start off by just telling you what it's not. It's not fun. It's not nearly as sexy as clinical dentistry. It doesn't often follow common sense or logic. So what it is it's actually part of human resources. This idea of the human resource or the people resource in your practice. Also, it's one of the compliance challenges that you have to deal with by owning and running a dental practice. And of course, one of those is your clinical record keeping and your charting. A second one is OSHA. A third is HIPAA. And the fourth compliance challenge that you just have to wrestle with is employment compliance. Now, by a show of hands, how many of you in dental school had courses or classes on employment compliance? And you see, the reality is it's not there. So what we're going to really work on today is some of the nuances and the issues associated with employment compliance. As it relates specifically to employment compliance, just know that all it takes is one employee. One employee to be mad or disgruntled with you, and you can end up on the front end of a lawsuit or a labor board complaint. The other aspect of all it taking is one employee is this. It just takes one employee, and you've got to follow about 95% of all the rules and the laws that are out there. Secondly, and to make this a little more challenging, you've got to deal with both a federal set of rules and laws as well as a state set. So then it becomes quite a juggling act in terms of keeping track and up to date with the most current requirements on your behalf. And the third aspect of employment compliance is that it's challenging and it's always changing. Here's a couple of examples. A little true and false question. I can implement a policy that forbids employees from discussing their wages and benefits, and if they break the policy, I can terminate them for that policy violation. True or false? Today, it's false. It didn't used to be that way. So here's an example of how things shift and change over time. Here's another one. True or false? I'm in an at-will state, and therefore I can terminate any of my employees anytime I want, with or without notice and with or without cause. Again, used to be true is no longer true. And in this presentation, we're going to delve into these aspects, and you'll learn that today you can't fire anyone if it's considered a violation of their civil rights, or if it's considered a violation of the public interest, or if it's considered a violation of their right against retaliation. The bottom line to this, and the real takeaway, is that at will no longer saves you. Now, this example that we've been talking about today comes up, and here are some of the reasons why these befuddled dentists. And you look down this list and you can imagine yourself just putting checks in the squares of those that might apply to you. For this type of thing to not happen to you, you have to act. And from our standpoint, act means you gain some awareness. And what I guarantee you is today, you're going to gain a lot of awareness. You may not like what I have to say, but trust me, you're going to leave here with increased awareness as to the issues, the challenges, and what you ultimately need to do about this. You also have a commitment to actually do something about it. And of course, you've got to then take some action, because gaining some awareness and having a commitment to do something and not doing anything about it really doesn't help you. If you really do take action, there are some wonderful benefits associated with getting yourself into compliance. And one of those is some peace of mind. And the peace of mind of knowing that you've got the T's crossed and the I's dotted and you've got things covered. You also have a bunch of great prevention and protection for your practice. You have greater hiring success. You know the kinds of questions to ask, and you know the kinds of questions to stay away from or not ask that can otherwise get you into trouble. You've got fewer misunderstandings with staff. And if you didn't know this, the #1 leading cause of turnover is misunderstandings. And we'll go through some of the calculations so that you can understand about the impact and the cost of turnover. So if we've got reduced turnover, we lower the stress, we lower the cost, and we're creating an environment where there's improved morale, we've got better job performance, and ultimately we've got lower employee-related stress. So for those of you here in the audience today, by a show of hands, how many of you suffer from or experience employee-related stress? And some of you not only have one hand up, but some of you even have both hands up. And to a degree, it's the nature of the beast, but that's going to be significantly reduced. So you've each taken this little quiz. And my question to you is, how'd you do? Now, as you've no doubt learned, the correct answer to each question is a yes. So anywhere where you have a no or an I don't know, it's a place where you have some liability or you have some exposure. Is it good news? Well, on one hand, no, it's not good news. On the other hand, it's good news. Why? Because now you know. And as long as you know, now there's something you can do about it to tighten things up and plug those holes. So what you get is that the workplace has changed significantly. And when you are unprepared as an employer, it can certainly blow up on you. Now, all these issues that we've been talking about are really about asset protection and minimizing risks. And as you've just learned, they don't really work, even though they've been assumed to be avenues and ways to protect you. One of the others that a lot of times people think will really protect their practice is this: don't put anything in writing. See, if you don't put anything in writing, how can you get into trouble? Well, look at this example here that tripped up a dentist. Staff person was terminated. She files a claim for an unfair termination, claiming she was let go because of her age. And you've learned just a little bit ago about age discrimination and what the breakpoints are for that. The dentist, of course, is saying, no, 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 I didn't terminate you for age. I terminated you because of poor job performance. Well, the investigators naturally said, well, doc, if it's poor job performance, show us the performance reviews that document the poor job performance. And guess what? There were none. So this boils down to the doctor's word versus the employee's word. And just know statistically, if it boils down to your word versus the employee is going to win 87% of the time. So it just gives you more information about the importance and the need for having these bases covered. Of course, the solution is to get your practice into compliance and to stay in compliance. And what does that look like? Well, now we're back to this overall picture of human resources, and it starts with a solid foundation. And the solid foundation is employment compliance. It's made up of 4 principal parts, which we're going to delve into in just a minute. The second key element of successful human resources is recruiting and hiring. So we get the right people on the bus, and we get the right people in the right seats on the bus. And then we go into performance management and team building, which is ensuring that we've got the right people tied with their strengths and the job duties and the expectations. And of course, we cap all that off with making sure that you're staying current and you're up to date and you've got access to ongoing support. Now, relative, again, to specifically to employment compliance, these are the 4 elements that make up that solid foundation. And relative to job descriptions, it's making sure you've got a recipe and a clear communication with your employees about expectations and duties and responsibilities and making sure that they're compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Making sure you've got a current and up-to-date policy manual as well as employee handbooks to help cover all of the bases. Making sure that everything is compliant for both the federal level as well as your particular state. And then making sure that you've got access to all of the personnel forms that make the documentation element simple and easy. And really, it supports good documentation. So with this solid foundation in place, you can see there are some really great benefits associated with it for you as well as the rest of the team. And like I said earlier, you're going to cap that off with making sure you're staying up to date and current so that this is not the ongoing challenge that it is. So in summary, how do you protect your practice? How do you protect the asset value of the practice? One is the protected classes that we talked about today, being familiar with it, understanding them, and knowing them, and know how this has been effectively the game changer relative to at-will employment. Make sure you're properly classifying and compensating your staff members or your team members so that you're not going to run afoul with any sort of wage and hour related claims or handling things correctly when it comes to continuing education, CE. Number 3, maintain your at-will rights. Make sure that you're not getting yourself into some hot water because of implied or expressed contracts or other sort of terminology incorporated in your manuals and your materials that can trip you up. Paper trail, you know, where you live, and they talk about real estate. The most important thing about real estate is what? Yep. Location, location, location. In this world here, the most important thing is documentation. It's documentation, documentation, documentation. And making sure that you truly have those bases covered. You want to make sure that you're administering and establishing your policies fairly and consistently. And of course, if I've done nothing more today with you, it's to help build maybe a little fire under you about the importance of employment compliance and crossing those T's and dotting those I's. So how do you do that? You can do it yourself. You can sit down at your computer and start Googling your life away. You can also hire the services of an attorney, or you can partner with an HR firm like us. If you were to work with us, just know in terms of background, I've been doing this for over 30 years. Bent Erickson & Associates is a company that specializes on personnel and human resources. It is all we do, and we work exclusively with healthcare professionals, and the majority of those are all dentists. We've been doing this for over 30 years, and we have a proven track record in all 50 states. In terms of publications, if you get around to reading your dental economics, you can notice that we have a column that appears regularly where we take HR-related issues and look to provide information to support or minimize the risk associated with that. We are also an accredited and approved provider of CE through AGD, which just gives you a sense of how our recognition exists in the marketplace. So you can think of us as a trusted resource when it comes to all things human resources, employment compliance, and the materials and the guidance and support associated with that.